So just being a woman, like as you met Sierra, see, yesterday, we're the only two women that do content in our network. And before Sierra's new, when I started with them, it was just me. There was another young lady who did more administrative things, but it was just me. And we used to have like a show where it was like similar to Around the Horn, but we had all these boxes up, and there's only one woman on there, and that was me.
Girl, you got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Say, girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Girl, you've
What up, sports fans? It is your boy, the sports reporter without pay. Y'all know what it is. We in the month of March, Women's History Month. It is breaking barriers, women in sports. Your boy, the sports reporter I pay, bringing you these phenomenal, amazing women doing great things in sports. And today, my special guest is the host of the V Show. I think I said that correctly. Ms. Vonora, welcome to the show. Did I get that right?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. It's the V Report, but V Show, I like that.
No, the V Report. We can't be messing your stuff up. I almost want to edit it and go back, but again, I like the realness of it. So again, for the viewers who may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm a regular schmegular girl from New York, and I love sports. Sports is my thing. I'm a football and basketball girl. That's it. Now I'm a diehard Yankees fan though, but I can't tell you nothing else about the Yankees besides I love them and I know the players. But that's about it. But I love sports. I've been covering football and basketball since 2017, and yeah, I'm building my own thing in this field.
Right before we came on air, you were telling me a few more things. So you're a radio host, and what else do you do?
So my podcast actually ended up going on the radio. So shout out to me down south. So in
Shout out
Atlanta, Texas, Arkansas, places I don't live, but my show is played down there because I am under a network that's located in Atlanta, Georgia. So I get to. That's why I'm saying radio host, because I am on the radio. I can't hear myself. I'm there. And I started out as a podcaster. And actually, I'm sorry, scratch that. I started as a sports writer that became a podcaster that became a radio host.
Okay,
and
so
now a YouTube girl.
Oh, you're doing it all, writing, podcasting, YouTube, the whole nine, in every way you possibly can. So you started off, you said you love sports, Yankee fan. We'll let that slide for now.
Oh, you're a Red Sox fan? Hate that
No,
for you.
I'm from Detroit. I'm like,
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have no problem with the Yankees. I'm just talking stuff. But so was it all? I mean, was that like a thing? Like you always love sports? Like growing up, did you play sports? Where does
Yes.
love for sports come from?
So my family's a big sports family. We're diehard New Yorkers. So Yankees, Knicks, Giants. That's us. That's what we rolled with. And Rangers. Can't forget my Rangers. So we rolled with them. And I actually ended up playing several sports when I was growing up. Started out with soccer, the usual, start with soccer. And then I ended up running track and doing field hockey, then I cheerlead.
Okay. So how talk to me about the journey into sports media per se. You grow up, you play sports, you love it, but how do we arrive here? How do we get to sports writing and podcasting and YouTubing?
So I actually wanted to go to law school to become a sports attorney. My goal was to work at the NFL in their legal department and actually get a bunch of players off. Okay, so that was originally my goal. And when I was going through my collegiate journey, I just couldn't get into the JD programs. It was a whole thing. So I was like, I knew I loved sports. I knew I wanted to work in the sports industry. I just didn't know how to get there. So I just went after, tried to become a sports agent, took the sports agent test twice, didn't pass. I missed one question on both times. And I was just like, hate this for me. And I just tweeted out there, I said, how can I get into the sports industry? And someone asked me to write. And I was like, okay, well, I did go to school, and I got my BA in history, pre-law, and English and business. So I got like a double concentration, double major. So I was like, okay, let me write. I know I can write well. So I ended up started writing because someone really liked my take on the Chiefs defense being absolutely trash in 2017. And I was picked up to start writing. And that's how that whole thing started.
That's funny. So, how did it then evolve to all these many facets that you're doing now? I mean, it seems like the typical thing to do, but you started out, not on camera at all, just writing. And then how
Yeah.
did we eventually venture into podcasting and radio hosting and being from New York, but being heard in Atlanta? How do we get here?
All right. So I started out writing on one website, and that went from 1 to 15 very fast. I was able to put out content quickly. I worked a 9 to 5 this entire time, and I was actually in school at the same time. All the stuff was like I went and got my master's in law actually during this time. So I have all these things happen at the same time. 'Cause I'm writing all the time, so I just kept writing and adding on more articles and more websites, and I just got to a point that I was like, I'm tired. I was like, I'm tired of writing. It's fun. I love it, but it was just like I want people to hear me more. So I just actually started this little afternoon chat where I said, I'm a chick talking about sports, come and chat with me. And people would come in, and it didn't go too well at first. I was like, dang, y'all rude. And then from there, I actually got picked up the interviews on a few different other people's radio shows. I got to be on ESPN 990 in Maryland. I'm currently in the DMV area. So that happened. I was like, this is dope. And then from there, it was just like more people just taking me here, there to be interviewed. And I was just like, wow, I'm just a regular girl just talking about sports and just trying to be somebody in this world. And then from there, I got picked up to be part of the MTMV network, which is the one that's located in Atlanta. And I was picked up to be at Ambush Sports Network, which at the time they were really big for covering the USFL. And
Okay.
it was like a very like random thing. I love football. I love all kind of football. So I was, yeah, I'll definitely write for you. Now I'm writing for just one network, getting all this exposure. And during that time, they also got partnership with the XFL in 2020. So I was able to go to the game, write some more, do more press. It was all this awesome experience. And then the whole world shut down. And I was like, well, I want to launch a podcast because I can't go anywhere. I can't talk about stuff, but I have a really good voice. Let's get on here and start talking. And MTMV was at the time a podcast network. They took me on, gave me a podcast platform and their audience. And from there, we went from podcasting, vibing, being that girl, talking that talk. And I talked about sports and life. I would just talk about anything until I realized I was getting fined because I kept saying the wrong stuff. From there, I went to YouTube. The network wanted to make a shift from podcasting to actual visual content. And I got out of my comfort zone, got in front of a camera to speak, not to be snapped. I'll at least be a model. So I was like, okay, this is great. Let me start talking. And now we are on YouTube.
Doing it all. And shout out to, you said MTV. Say it again.
MTMV.
MTMV. I don't know if you even know this. I interviewed Miss C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yes, my colleague.
yes, she saw my intro. I don't know if you haven't seen the intro. It is fire. And she saw you on there. She said, look at my sis. I say, oh, I'm interviewing her tomorrow. I just interviewed her yesterday. So I was telling her I was interviewing her today. Yeah. So
she has her 100th episode coming out on Sunday, so people should definitely tune in.
We talked about that. She has 100 coming out Sunday, and then on the other show, she's at 64. So shout out to both of y'all doing big things.
You.
So when you look back at this journey thus far, you say you've been covering since 2017. So 5-6 years now at this point. Is there anybody in your mind that stands out as I guess I would say like an inspiration, like a sports journalist or somebody in the same lane that you look up to, or just look at it and say, I can do that, or I can be that?
Who actually, I got to first shout out Josh Moselle. He was the guy who gave me my first shot in writing. And I told him, every award I get, once I take off, I'm shouting you out because you had my back when no one else did. So shout out to Josh Moselle from Ambush Sports Network, who gave me my first opportunity ever do anything in sports. So shout out to him. But the person that really inspired me was Jamel Hill. I used to love the show with her and was it Michael Sam? His last no, that's
Michael
not Sam.
Smith.
Michael
Michael
Smith.
Smith.
Thank you, Michael Smith. I love their show. I used to like listen to their podcast at work, being like, one day I'm gonna be out of here and cover sports, just like them. And when I got to watch their show when it was on ESPN. I was so excited. Like she really made me think I could do this too. Because again, I didn't go to school for journalism. I went to school to become a lawyer. So and this was like a late in life change. Like I'm 30 now, but at the time I thought, well, I can't make a shift like this at 25 or 24. I was like, it wasn't the time. It was just like, I gotta become a lawyer, find a way to become it. So like seeing her do that and also listening to her story, how she started in college and things like that, but she never let anything that got in the way stop her from still reaching her goals, especially being a Black woman in sports. That's a whole different thing. So just seeing her go from this whole, you gotta be a good girl behavior to her own self and standing on her own feet, that was what inspired me and keeps inspiring me to this day.
Interestingly, you brought up Jamel. I asked that question to everybody, and her name comes up a lot. I went to the ESPN Black Sports Symposium last year, and she was there and she spoke. And then I just covered the Super Bowl, whenever, 2 months ago, 3 months, and I interviewed Michael Smith. Oddly enough, I interviewed Michael Smith, and she came up. One of the things he was talking about was the impact that she's had on the culture, period. And he was looking around the room and he said, you look around, you see these women in here doing their thing. And it wasn't like that years ago. And he said that was one of the things that they wanted to show with their show, was that a woman could sit across from a man and not sit there to be pretty, not sit there to be the moderator. Yep. No, she could have her opinion.
Yep.
And so Jamel, and shout out to Michael too, right? Like they opened a lot of doors for a lot of people that we see today. So shout out to them. It's crazy you brought up Jamel and Michael. Me and him just talked about
that. Was the show for me.
Oh yeah, listen, that show, the way it impacted the culture altogether.
It was such a vibe, and it was such an easy show to listen to. And when you couldn't watch it, you can listen to it. And it was just like, okay, well, while I'm studying and doing work, I was like, yo, they talking that talk. Yeah, okay.
They felt like your people. You know what I mean? Like they felt like you were sitting in the barbershop just vibing with them.
It felt like the homies.
Right.
That's what gave me, homies.
And you know what's crazy? He's like that in person. He was just like that in person.
Okay, come
on. Just like that, yeah. So interestingly, you brought up Jamel, and you talked about her being a Black woman and that being a whole different thing. Obviously, that's the crux of this show, right? Like breaking barriers, women in sports. Speak to the dynamics of some of the different hurdles and struggles that you as women face that your male counterparts maybe don't. And then you already touched on it. You opened that door. So let's go there. Being a Black woman in sports, right? Fighting two different battles. Kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So just being a woman, like as you met Sierra, yesterday, we're the only two women that do content in our network. And before, Sierra's new. When I started with them, it was just me. There was another young lady who did more administrative things, but it was just me. And we used to have a show where it was like similar to Around the Horn, but we had all these boxes up and there's only one woman on there, and that was me. And it was rough at first because trying to get my point, get my voice heard, because I didn't like the idea of coming off as an angry woman on the show, even though they would say egregious things that just made no sense. But I was just like, that's the idea. Like, what are you watch football, or are you just a guy that just sits there with a beer? Like, let me know which one you are. Like, it didn't make sense. Like this, like, oh man, the things they would say about Tim Tebow. I was like, again, are you watching football, or are you just, going with vibes? So it was very hard at first making myself known, but not in the negative way, because as a New Yorker, I talk with my hands, which I'm doing a very good job right now not doing, but talk with my hands. I get very loud. My accent is very thick when I get a little bit more excited. So sorry, more excited. So it's just like, I so some people, because they're Southerners, so that sounds a little more aggressive. I don't think it's aggressive, but to them it's aggressive. And then when you watch it, it does come off as you're angry. And I'm like, wow, I just love my Giants, not because I'm angry, but it looks that way. And that was hard. And what I didn't want to be was the angry black woman on camera, because it's so quick for people to say, well, Tom Brady's passionate, you're just angry, or I'm just passionate because Tom Brady smashing up a tablet is angry. It's not just passion, it's angry.
Right.
So I didn't want that to come across on the screen, especially when I was on camera, for sure. When I was writing, it was kind of hard again to try to get people to listen what I have to say, because some of the guys are like, well, I played football. I said, me too. I was a wide receiver.
Nice.
Until I got hit. Now you want to play no more. But I did play and I enjoyed it. I loved it. But I used to be the girl. I was a cheerleader, I told you. But I was the girl that was watching and was just like, oh my gosh, what a miss. He just missed coverage, blown. Oh my gosh, where is the lineman? Why isn't he protecting the, why isn't he doing this? Like
you sound
everyone,
you sound like you ever remember the Titans, like the
yeah,
coach's kid, and
yes,
she's watching
that's
the game.
yes. That was me, like, oh my God. People were like, why are you so excited? I was like, you don't just see that we we got a necessary first down. It was like 4th and 12. And they're like, so I'm like, you don't know nothing.
I hear you.
And I was
So
always that girl. So to me, it's like, to go from being the girl on the sideline, supposed to just sit there and be pretty, to the girl that could actually cover it. I wanted to make sure I did that well. And one of the things I was really big on, I wanted the voiceless to be heard in the sports industry. So I was very big with LGBT. I was very big with women's rights. I was very big with Black rights. I'm a huge advocate. So when every time I have to talk, I put those things in there. Especially during the pandemic, we know what was going on with BLM and just the police brutality. I was the person on our show that brought it up every episode and made sure it was discussed, because I didn't want this platform to miss that while everything else is going on. I don't want to talk about Korean. So I'm not trying to be rude. I didn't want to talk about Korean baseball. That's the only thing we could watch during the pandemic.
shout out to you, because that's something that many people, it's one of those things people won't just come out and say, but you're already fighting the two battles and dealing with the two hurdles of being a minority, right, and being a woman, another minority, being a Black woman and
a darker skinned Black woman.
That's a whole nother dynamic that rarely comes up, right?
Yeah.
Being so we're running it off. Being a woman, being a Black woman, and then being a darker skinned Black woman. Like people won't talk about. There's a difference between Viola Davis and Malika Andrews. Like that's not the same in this world. Like the sad reality is that's just how it is, right? And then on top of that, to have the courage to say, yeah, I know I'm fighting all those hurdles and it's already hard for me, and I'm still going to speak on these things that people like, the kind of stuff that get folks canceled. Like, so shout out to you, man, for having the courage to stand your ground and speak to things you want to speak about. You talked about not wanting to be the angry, not just the angry woman, but the angry Black woman, right? Because when a woman has any kind of personality, right, if she talk her stuff, it come across as attitude, right? Men do the same stuff. Stephen A. Smith can get on TV and yell for 20 minutes in a row, and it's okay, right? But the minute you passionately express something, right, or you're angry and you have an attitude, because I don't know what that feels like, right? I don't know what it feels like to have to attempt to censor myself to try to get to where I want to go, right? So how do you navigate that? Like, how do you navigate that route, right? Knowing what you're up against, being mindful of it, yet wanting to stay true to yourself. How do you navigate that?
Okay. I first want to shout out to KBO, which is Korean Baseball League, because they definitely had my back throughout the pandemic.
I don't want to talk about Korean baseball.
Okay, I want to make sure I shout them out. Love y'all. Didn't want to come out as hate, so I love y'all, and thank you for supporting my podcast, because they did. Shout out to them. But how I navigated, I actually, it was kind of funny. I actually talked to my therapist a lot about it, because I wanted to be this girl who's passionate about the Giants, but also mostly passionate about football. And I didn't want to come out as that. Well, I know how it looked because I would also do a lot of media training myself. I would purposely put myself in like courses to learn how to conduct yourself on camera. So like when I would watch some of our old shows, and then when I would get really passionate about something, I'm like, okay, maybe the way we said it, we can work on the way we say things. I could do that in general. Again, as a New Yorker, you say certain things that in New York is fine, but to people in the South, it's wild. So it's just like I worked on how I delivered things, and what my therapist would talk about was making a different persona. Like your on-screen persona is this woman that's very strong and bubbly. However, she is very stern and knows what she's talking about. My natural self, I'm the most relaxed human being ever. Like, I just always with chill. I'm always vibing. I'm always chill. But on camera, I'm always like I'm passionate. But I try to make the passionate self of me look more. I'm not gonna say bubbly's not the right word. It's more like I'm passionate, but I'm also very precise what I say. And I'm very short how I say it. So it's like one thing to say, "Oh, I love the Giants," or "The Giants are the best team in the NFC East." Like that's like I'll be like this. I'm short, straight with it, boom. But so I'm not coming off as, "Oh my God, my Giants are." I don't talk like that. I switched how I say things and the way it's delivered, so that if you try to go with the passionate route, I just change my tone to show you that I can switch it up.
I'm assuming that was an example, but you said, the different way you say things, and one of the things you said was, the Giants are the best team in the NFC. When is the last time that was true?
Okay. You
So,
Philly team, Philly got it this year. We're coming
listen,
back strong next year.
listen, I have to tell people, I'll take shots at people's teams, and they always go, "Who's your team?" I'm like, "Don't worry about that. I'm a Lions fan." So that, like,
Oh, please.
don't do
Because
that.
of you, half
Don't
of
do
my
that.
team got taken out.
Yeah.
You know what? You didn't even go anywhere.
Hey,
And you
listen,
took out my favorite quarterback,
we
Aaron
spoiled
Rodgers.
we
Hate that
spoiled
for
a
you.
lot. We spoiled a lot of things for a lot of people this year.
Yes, you did.
For a lot of
You
people.
in the way.
So, if as you look back again, over your journey, what's the one thing that stands out to you? What's that feather in your cap? That moment for you that just stands out above the rest? Like that was my that was it. That was my moment. I knew I belonged here. I felt I'd arrived. What was that for you?
The moment when I was asked to do the radio interview about the NBA, that was huge to me, and it wasn't expected. And to hear that the high turnout and how hearing like people call in and ask me questions, these are things that I would literally watch on TV. Like I watch Keyshawn, Will, and Max. People call in every morning asking questions, want to contribute to the conversation. Having people call in and want to contribute to my conversation, I was like, okay, I deserve to be on this platform too. Like at first, everything's like stressful when you're trying to find your way and find your voice. But that moment when I forgot who called. It was somebody in Indiana called and said, "I like what you're saying, Nora Natish. You sound so smart. A quick question for you: how you feel about the Colts? You think we're gonna do well this year?" I said, "Absolutely not." But thank you
Yeah,
for the compliment.
crushing people's hopes and
I'm
dreams.
just letting you know. I don't sugarcoat it. I give it to you real, and that just made me like, wow, like you said my name on the radio. Like to me, that was like a big moment for me. And one of my biggest podcast episodes was actually the one where I discussed my leave of absence, which was when my grandmother passed away, and the hear what I like all the responses. I like people was I was opening up my DMs for anyone could talk to me in my DMs on Twitter and Instagram. But I got so many DMs, so many responses from that. I was talking about my mental health at the time, about grief, which is what all my foundation stuff's about. So it was just like that was a moment when I was like, okay, I have an audience that really listens to me and really pours into me. And I was like, all right, now I have a responsibility to always give my 100%. Because there be sometimes those podcast episodes I'll be playing. I really would be playing. But that was the episode, and that was the other moment that made me solidify, like, okay, you got responsibility. It went from this is cute to now you got responsibility. The radio thing and the pot and the when my fans, not fans, I don't want to call fans, that's fanatics. When people like supporters reached out to me and gave me all that love, and just now I know that people are listening. That was a really big moment for me.
Miss Nora, I genuinely appreciate you. No, actually, wait a minute. Before I wrap up, you just casually mentioned your foundation. Before we
Yes.
get out of here, talk to me about your foundation.
Sure. So I started a nonprofit foundation in the DMV area called the VL Foundation. We work with children who have either lost or been abandoned by their parents. And what we do is it's pretty much like we provide grief counseling, and we have grief discussions. And that's how we start the whole thing. And then we actually help these kids get to college or get into the workforce. So we have programs about financial literacy, about which is in that starting your bank account, knowing how to make a budget, knowing how to create savings. We have programs about interview attire for those kids who are only going to the workforce. But we put both kids in those programs because you need to know how to dress for an interview. You know what to say. You know how to present your best you to your future employer. We have workshops about mental health and other aspects. You might not be grieving, but you could be angry. So we talk about healthy ways to actually process our emotions, and we do things to just uplift the kids in the DMV area. So those kids that are interested in going to college, we have a whole college prep course to get them ready. We actually put a young woman in college that started in January. As we finished that whole thing last year. We also give out scholarships. We just issued our 3 scholarships for this year. We posted them last week. And we already have kids applying for them. So we are about changing that stigma that once you are out, quote unquote, I hate that word because when I lost my parents, I remember someone told me, "No, you're gonna be an orphan." I said, "No, I'm an orphan. I got people that love me and that take care of me." And that's exactly how I want these kids to feel. That you're not out here by yourself. There are more people than you that are going through the same stuff. But guess what? It's another way we can look at it. And I was very adamant when I first launched the foundation to show children that my entire board was under 30 at the time, all of us, that this is not something that you gotta wait to make your dreams happen. You go after them at any age. And when I do speak about grief and uplifting and empowerment, that's something I really push at my foundation. But it's because I want people to, especially kids, to know that this is not something that you have to wait on. It's not a waiting game. It's a now game. And that's what we do. We want to get these kids out of these streets and out of dangerous situations. We want to get them into jobs, into school, because I know they got more than what's on the street.
And do you have a website?
Yes.
Go ahead and drop that website real quick. And if this
find us at thevlfoundation.org. So the VLFoundation.org is where you can find us at. We have also social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the VL Foundation, and that's where you can see all the things we're doing. We're actually launching a whole campaign next week, the 5 rules of power that I've come up with. I also learned from other people. I remixed the definitely again power. I want to impact the youth. So this is all for adolescents. So these rules kind of make sense to them. So those who are following our social media will see those as they get posted.
Okay. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Last but not least, you talked about the foundation, but again, you're a radio host, you're a podcaster. I'm sure you're on all over social media. So I'm going to solo shot you. Let the people know where they can find you. Don't leave nothing out. We're going to put it all in.
All right. You can find me at Nora, Nora _Natish on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. You can find me Vonora Lewis on Facebook, and that's all the sites I'm on. Also on Snapchat, but you don't want Snapchat. But you can find me at all those different places. And if you ever needed to chat or you want to be on my show or argue with me on my show, you're welcome. Just hit me my DMs at Nora _Natish.
Well, I definitely want to make an appearance on the V
Yes.
Report. the V Report. I said it.
Yes,
said
you
it.
did.
Yes. Again, Ms. Nora, I appreciate you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your story. Again, for the fans watching or the supporters watching, for the supporters watching, this has been another episode of Breaking Barriers, Women in Sports with your boy, the sports reporter without pay, Ms. Nora Natish. We're going to catch y'all on the next one.
Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Say, girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it.